Okay, Shalom, Kahla Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai. Alright, this is your brother Awar making a video to feed the sheep, to edify the lambs. Shalom to the Akim and the Akwathim that are going to be watching this video. Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai Brakatham. Kahla Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai. Right, I don't know how I even got here. For some reason, the Spirit is on me looking up Native Indians for some reason, but panties, because there's this word called panties, right? Which it says panties was a term used in French Canada for slaves of First Nations descent, right? Which it was a derogatory term, right? Which I don't know what that is, but it was originally from the original word is Pawnee, which is a native Indian tribe, right? So they corrupted their name and gave them a word called panty, right? So the French did, right? The term is widely described as a corruption of the name for the Pawnee of First Nations people, right? Which goes into Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, right? Being called a proverb and a byword, even though like that, the Pawnee and all that isn't their original name. But you go look up some of the words and names of these Aboriginals and Native Indian people of their language. It's related and close to Hebrew pronunciation words. Right? This is Deuteronomy 20:37, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all the nations where the Most High shall lead thee. Right? And I was reading Salakia. I was reading one of these articles. So I had to yawn. Right, and even this one even went into how it says Jacques Cartier. I haven't spoken French in a while. A French exploiter captured an Iroquois chief by the name of Donnacona and 10 of his men in 1535. The first Canadian slaves were native people derogatorily called Pawnees or Pawnees. Alright. And in one of these articles I was reading about how the Judah and Israel were being oppressed together here in Canada, which a lot of these Canadians love talking about how they didn't own no slaves or Negro slaves. Well, y'all niggas still, if you don't want to go there, because a lot of Canada didn't have Negro slaves, and slavery was abolished earlier in Canada than it was in the Americas, but they had a lot of Native American slaves, right, which we know are the children of Israel. Right, it's like right, it says in Canada, the majority, this is where we are at in Sakari GTA. In Canada, the majority of slaves were not of African, which we know when they call it saying African, they're just relating to the continent of Africa, right? Trying to group us in with these Hamites, who are not Hamites. We know some of us look similar, right? It's Exodus 11:7, especially of the southern kingdom. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, right? That ye may know how that Yahweh doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. Why? Because we look the same. The Israelites and the Egyptians look the same, which is why Moses in Exodus 2 was mistaken for an Egyptian, right? Right? Okay, look. Now the priests of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. See, these men had no respect for these women. They're just being a bunch of tyrants, right? Instead of helping the woman, they just like get out of the way, right? But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And that's what jakes do, right? There's a video of these there's a video of these jakes helping some Edomite lady with their get into the car with their handicap. Right? But our people are kind, man. Our people are willing to go and go out of their way to help women or help people that are in need. You know? But it's unfortunately that we just don't have that kindness for ourselves, for our own people for the most part. It's usually of other nations. I can vouch for that. And so Moses helped them water their flock, right? And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, "How is it that ye are come so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock." Now, is Moses an Egyptian, or was he a Hebrew? Right? And there, verse Exodus 2:1, and there went a man of the house of Levi and took to a wife a daughter of Levi, and one conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him that was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. Which was talking about Moses. Moses is a Levite, right? So they're just these people calling us Africans because they can group us in with them because we look similar, but we're not Africans, man. We are the Africans, the so-called Africans, which are Hamites. They don't even want to go by the biblical terminology for most has biblical name for them. They don't want to, because that's what Esau does in this society. They just group everybody into anything. They don't want to call people Egyptians or Cushites or Canaanites. Right? They just say everybody's African or everyone's American, everyone's Canadian, European, white, black. You just group everybody up together. That's all they do. Right? So this also goes to show how dumb people are because people don't know about nationalities anymore. But anyways, back on topic, which what is it called? Slovakia, right? But rather, so in Canada, the majority of slaves were not of African, but rather of Aboriginal origin, right? Why? Because the majority of the Native Americans lived up in the upper parts of Canada, which they inhabited a lot of here from certain territories up above, right? Which is the more colder climates, especially around here. You see these 3 Great Lakes, so we're located around here. Let me move up on the camera. Right. Our brothers that were around in Canada, Toronto, GTA area, we living around these Great Lake areas. You can literally see them when you go to visit Toronto. Right. Right, there was one thing I wanted to see. It says the slaves were generally very young among the Panis. I don't know how to pronounce it, but we know it's meant for the Pawnee for the tribe, right? The average age would have been 14 years old and 18 years old for blacks. The percentage of females among Aboriginal slaves were 57%. Among black slaves, the percentage of males was also 57%. So that's why you usually see if you go and ask so-called white men, these white people love saying, "Oh, I'm Native American too." You ask them what on which side, they always say their mother, because these mans would be raping their woman, raping the little boys and little girls, mainly raping the little Native Indian girls, right? having their woman having babies with the Edomites, which those babies those Native Indian women give birth to are Edomites. They're not native or of the tribe of Gad. Oh shoot, I almost dropped that. To Deuteronomy 28 and 32. But what I mainly wanted to get from that was how Our people don't look at the natives as their own people, but we were oppressed together, as the scriptures have said. Right, this Deuteronomy 28 and 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and then I shall look and feel with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Right, the fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and they shall be only oppressed and crushed always. Right, that's what happened. These guys, you Latinos and Native Indians, done blessed up this land. You had it. You kept it clean. You had a strong and popular and advanced society going on, and another nation just came and ate it all up. Right. Now we know the Japhites inhabited Gog and Magog, but the Japhites have their own land right now. They got pushed out of their own land through Esau going up in there and conquering it, but the Edomites didn't just rule over them, keep the Japhites in their land and rule over them. No, the Japhites got the Philippines, right? They got the various islands, right? But let you be an Israelite. They're gonna hold you fast because they need you to run the society, right? And we know they always cook these numbers too. Whether it's be a certain amount of slaves, we know there's always going to be a lot more than Esau always tries to downplay his wickedness. Right? This person saying we generally don't think of the French Canadians as slave owners of either Indians or Africans, but Indian slavery was legalized in what is now Canada in 1709. In fact, in 1725, half of the colonists who owned a home in Montreal also owned a slave. The slaves were a mixture of African and Pawnee Native Americans, but primarily Native Americans. Because the African trade routes did not favor the Canadian market, did not venture north to the St. Lawrence, and Africans purchased on the Atlantic seaboard were expensive, saying we were a rare commodity. the Southern Kingdom was a rare commodity. We were expensive. What the heck? But yeah, that's what I wanted to get. Like, let me get that in Jeremiah. We were oppressed together, man, and that's why it's so important for them to try and keep us from who we are, and knowing that the people that we oppress are the same people, and they don't want us to come to that understanding and that conclusion, because that's powerful, right? Because the Most High tells us to gather ourselves together. Thus say Yahweh of hosts, Jeremiah 15:33, the children of Israel, right, the Native American and the Latinos, so-called today, the children of Judah, the Negroes, the Caribbean islands, and Americans, the African Americans, so-called today, were oppressed together. What time in history were they oppressed together? You can't look it up in the scriptures, because you look at all the other captivities, it's talking about Jews, from the Persian to Greece to Rome. It only mentions Jews, right? Because the Native Americans and the Latinos, they came over to the west side of the earth after the Assyrian captivity, right? So then, when we finally got over here, that's when we were finally oppressed together. Well, they brought us over there to be oppressed with them, right? With our brothers and sisters, and all them that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. They didn't bring us back to the West Coast. They didn't give back the land to the Mexicans that they stole. They just telling them to get out of our country now. Don't speak Spanish up in here. We don't like it. That's all they say now. They building pipelines to the little reservations that the Native Americans have after you stole. All the land was theirs. All they got is the outcast of the land and living up in reservations. Right? Right, so we were oppressed together. Especially in a lot of these Canadians love to act like they didn't have no Negro slaves. Well, guess what? You read your history. You did. And you enslaved us. and we were working side by side with our brothers, the Native Americans of the tribe of Gad. It goes to show you these prophecies that how we're the Most High God's chosen people, right? And we were being oppressed together, man. You're supposed to be understanding that these the natives are your brothers and sisters. You Negroes, man, because a lot of the Negroes be vexing the Northern Kingdom like they did in the past, right? So I'll just see if there's anything any more information I could draw from this. Right, I guess it says in conclusion, it says, let me drop to, it says indigenous slaves made up 2/3 of the slaves in Canada. Who was the third made up by? Of the Negroes. Over the course of about 150 years, overwhelmingly for most of the Canadian history, the majority of slaves were indigenous. It says, look at it, it says it says for the most of Canadian history. However, while both histories are significant in Canada, the story of indigenous enslavement has been largely overprinted by that of black slavery, since enslavement of black peoples within plantation slavery continued across the Americas long after the abolition of slavery in Canada. Right, so Canada tried to these guys said, all right, let our American brothers take our brothers south of us take all the heat. We gonna go up into the shadows and act like and let it die off. But no, the Most High is bringing it back up. Hey, you're not gonna get off. You're not gonna get off with the crimes that you've done to the Most High God's chosen people. Right. So I guess that's pretty much it. Like, just to go quickly and show this, like, you saying that the Native Americans aren't Israelites, man. They clearly fit the curses, right? I think there might have been one thing that the Spirit's kind of still on me, like as if I missed something. But I don't know. But yeah. I guess that's pretty much it, man. That's pretty much what I wanted to get, man. Judah and Israel were pressed together, right? We're brothers and sisters. We're gonna come up out of this captivity, and get all this together. Like all they do is talking about. This thing says slavery of indigenous people in Canada, but look at how much they keep talking about how so-called black people were being enslaved too. Right? It says in Upper Canada, both indigenous and black slavery existed. However, the number of indigenous slaves had begun to decline there as well. Right? So it's just showing. I'm just going to show, man. This is the scriptures prophesying. You only never see where is it written that that two different nations of people were enslaved together in history. That Chinese and so-called white people were enslaved together, right? Or African and African and Indians. You don't see that nowhere. This is the only time in history you see it. Okay, so that's what we're trying to bring out, to show you through the scriptures and the prophecies, man, that this book is a true book. That you are the Israelites. Doesn't matter what none of these people want to say. That having you come to the fact that you're Israelites is the last thing that they would want you to do. Right? So I guess that's pretty much it, man. Alright, so with that, I guess I'm gonna say Shalom. Yahweh Shem Yashar Barakatham.